I can count on one hand the number of times Lauren has received a rose, and I don't think none of them are from me. So that's true. Lilies are her favorite flower. So once every decade I'll get her flowers, I'll get her lilies. All right, we are in the book of Genesis. Open your Bibles there to chapter 1, verse 14. Genesis 1:14. We are at the fifth utterance of creation as we go through the rest of this chapter, which hopefully we'll get through just this chapter and finish chapter 1 by the end of the evening. You'll notice as we go through it that there are 10 in all, but we'll recap them as we get to the end. Right now we're on number 5, which is one that is a little bit perplexing, a little bit confusing if you don't give yourself the opportunity to admire the supernatural power of the Lord. If you keep trying to drag God down to natural levels, if you keep trying to drag God down to what is plausible and possible from your mental capacity, then you will read something like verse 14 and you will scratch your head. But if you allow yourself to appreciate that God can do things beyond that which you might be able to imagine, then you read verse 14 and you think, that's neat, and you keep on going, as Moses does. But let's give it its due consideration. Genesis 1:14, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So just high overview of this, the part that is just the easily grasped part, is the fact that the lights in the sky, the sunlight, the moonlight, the existence of those lights, the comings and goings of those lights on the daily schedule, the yearly schedule and so forth that we follow, and the monthly schedule with the moon and all of that is done in order to give us and to maintain a calendar. That's the end of the verse. They are for signs, seasons, days, and years. In other words, God has in the very beginning the understanding that he will eventually have a people who will mark their calendar by significant special occasions on the calendar. That there will be on this moon or on this new moon or on this full moon, so many days after that will be this celebration or there'll be this festival, and they will be able to know every time it is this moon, that means this Passover is coming up, or the Feast of Tabernacles is coming up, or Yom Kippur is coming up. And they will know that because they will keep the time by the calendar, and the calendar is kept by the sun, the moon, the stars. So generally, that's just all the verse is. But then still, you read this and you think, but wait just a second, because you've got God saying, let's have these lights to, middle of the verse, divide the day from the night. But we have already read, because we just finished verse 13, previous verse, the evening and the morning were the third day. Well, where is that light coming from if we're already having evenings and mornings? It's not until you get to day 4, where we are. Day four, God made sun and moon, stars galore. That's how it goes. Yeah. It's not until you get to day 4 that suddenly God is making the sun. Well, we've had light and we've had no light in a daily cycle for all these days. What's the deal? And so you think, well, the critic, the skeptic, the one who's trying to destroy and undermine the Bible is going to read that and think, well, there you go. There's a contradiction. There's something that is clearly and obviously anti-scientific and anti-reality. There's a problem with just that kind of dismissive criticism. And that is that Moses, even if, let's just say there is no Holy Spirit. Let's even say, I'll even throw you this one, there is no Moses. That Genesis is just what the postmodernists say, a collection of writings grouped into 4 major chunks that were all stuck together at some point in the past and compiled and collected by post-exilic Jews heading into the pre-AD era. That's all Genesis is, just a bunch of vague writings. Okay, those guys in that hypothetical who wrote Genesis 1, somebody wrote it because we're reading it. They lived in a time where there was a sunrise and a sunset and a moonrise and a moonset. They lived in a time where there was lights in the sky. Somebody, you would think, would have caught that and said, hey, George, you wrote on page 1, God made light. Don't you think you should amend that? Because it makes us look like we're morons. So if you're going to read this and be a critic and say, whoever wrote this is a moron, well, if what it means is what you're saying, that it's some obvious contradiction, then yeah, I would agree they'd be a moron if that's all it is. If they missed it on page 3, or not even page 3, we're still on page 1 of the Bible, 3 paragraphs from the beginning, and they missed that and no one along the way caught that, then yeah, I would agree something is obviously fishy there. There is a different explanation though, one that is exactly what Moses says that it is, and that is this. In the beginning, here's our world, earth, and here is what was the first utterance of creation. Let there be light. So there's light. Then on day 4, God made the generator. And that's If you think, well, that sounds ridiculous, as I said last week, wait till you see what he does to the Red Sea. God does amazing, sometimes seemingly ridiculous, impossible, improbable, unlikely, unfathomable things all the time. He does it for breakfast. So here, God made light. Then later, God made the generator for that light. But now you might hear that and you might think, but that doesn't really make sense. Why would God do it that way? First of all, that's not for you to ask. Why do you do things the way you do them? You do them because of your good pleasure. God did this the way he did it for his good pleasure. But even setting that aside, you can argue a scientific principle here. Because Moses, who should never have known this, writes with the understanding, given to him by the Holy Spirit, that light follows a speed limit, that light travels. Light was not, as you would think the ancients would have assumed, instantaneous. That light just exists. No, light has to travel from point A to point B. It's very fast. It's 186,000 miles per second, but it still has to travel from point A to point B. Light from the sun takes, does anybody know how long to get to the earth? 8 hours, more or less. So if the sun goes boom right now, well, right now it's dark. Let's say tomorrow morning. If the sun goes boom tomorrow morning, it'll take us 8 hours before it reaches us, again, more or less, in order for us to see that it's gone, because it takes the light that long to get from where it is, 97, whatever million miles away, to the earth. So Moses doesn't understand. The Holy Spirit, who invented the thing, God, understands that light takes a minute to get there. And as we mentioned last week, it's not just the sun. We'll get to it I think it's in 2 verses or so, where God also made all the stars, lights from which are very far away, their points of origin. But the fact that we're able to see them tells us that God made the light for them to reach the planet first and then later made the generator. And that follows the same principle you're going to see throughout the beginning of Genesis, which is in the beginning, God made, get ready for it now. What we got there? A chicken. God made a chicken, and that chicken, put it in the exact right spot, made the egg. God didn't make the egg and then wait for it. When's that sucker going to hatch so I can have myself a chicken? No, God made the chicken, and the chicken made the egg. When God made Adam was a man, not a baby. When God made a chicken, he made a chicken, later made an egg. God made a man, Adam, and a woman, Eve, or he will in a minute. And then together they made Seth and Cain and Abel and so forth and so on, sons and daughters. God made things fully formed to reproduce after their kind. God made light. I'm not talking about making the sun fully formed. In the beginning, God made light fully formed, air quotes. In other words, God made light already having reached the world. He made the cyclical cycle of day and night before he made the generator to produce more light. In the beginning, God said, let there be light. It's not till day 4 that God got around to, by his good pleasure, on his good time, to make the thing that produces more of that. Supernaturally, in the beginning, God made light. By day 4, God made a thing which would on its own naturally produce more light. Right? God made the chicken supernaturally. It laid an egg naturally. So that is there. People always talk about Moses as this pre-scientific ignoramus living in a cave, but Moses is post-scientific. Moses knew things about light that no one in his time period should have known before people like Copernicus and Galileo came along to kind of introduce the sciences and so forth as we know them today. So there's that. Verse 15. Let them being, because I forgot to draw the other one, the moon. Let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. The light of the sun reflects the light of the moon upon the earth. It's remarkable to me the way Moses writes about this the way he does, and the only explanation for it is the inspiration of God. Moses writes that God made daylight for daytime and darkness for nighttime before he ever made the sun and the moon, and that is bizarre when you first read it, but as I say, very consistent with the whole rest of the book. Yeah, good. All right, verse 16. And God made, now let's clarify that, God made 2 great lights, a greater light to rule the day and a lesser light to rule the night, and he made the stars too. There's a lot of them. Yeah, and Moses says, I know, they are very pretty. Let's move on. I would like to know about that nebula. There is an Andromeda galaxy right there that for a long time we thought was just a nebula until we got telescopes big enough to see that thing, and we realized that's not just gas. That is a bunch of stars all clustered together and a bunch of solar systems all clustered together. That is a whole galaxy just floating up there. And what's up with that, Moses? And Moses is just like, I know, ain't it pretty? That's the whole thing. That's all you get from it. Moses, God says, made the stars too. The more important thing is he made 2 great lights, a greater light to rule the day, a lesser light to rule the night. And then again, some skeptic, some wannabe trying to find a critic of the Bible is going to say, oh, but the moon doesn't actually produce light. Yeah, okay, I know. It doesn't matter. Moses personally is not going to know that, but nothing he says goes against that simple idea, which is when you look at it, it's shining light. It doesn't matter that it did not create the light, it is reflecting light, which should not be a surprise because everything reflects light. That's how light works. It's bouncing off everything. Like the earth reflects 30% of the sun's light. Venus reflects 75% of the sun's light. It's just not as bright as the moon because the moon is 250,000 miles away and Venus is 25 million miles away. But that's just how light works. So you're not proving anything by saying, but the moon doesn't actually produce light. Moses didn't say it did. He just says this lesser light, when you look up at the moon, it has light. It's light that's bouncing off of, but it's light. So let's not argue semantics. Let's not be a pedant, okay? All right. And another thing. The skeptic, the critic, the person who's looking for a reason to criticize the Bible is going to say, all right, hold on, let's go back to that and God made the stars two-part. Because here we are on planet Earth, and let's just, I'm sorry to disappoint you all, we're probably never going to visit any of these stars, okay? Star Trek is a wonderful show. It's never going to happen. We're never going to do it. We're never going to figure it out. Even the closest one, Proxima Centauri, it would take us 4 years at the speed of light to get there, and we don't know how to crack that thing. So we're not going to make it. We're not going to see it. All we're going to be able to do is look up through a telescope. Have you ever looked at the stars through a telescope? I got a telescope. I love that thing. I got it, I don't know, like 10 years ago now for Christmas. My mother bought it for me for Christmas. And it's like, the thing is like, you got to bear hug this thing. It's huge. It's heavy. It's an Orion XT8, I think is what it's called. I mean, this sucker is amazing. You can see the rings of Saturn. It's just amazing. So I first got, it's my first telescope. I'm like 30 when I got it, but I'm super excited. It's like Christmas morning. I mean, it was literally Christmas morning. And I'm like, I cannot wait for nighttime to look up and see all these things that I've always dreamed about and envisioned. So finally a clear night comes, those beautiful, crisp, clear winter nights. And I lug out that giant telescope and I angle it just right. I'm not looking for a planet. I'm looking at all those stars. And I look through the little people and I look up at the stars. And you know what those little bitty, tiny little white pinpricks in the sky look like through a telescope? Slightly larger white pinpricks in the sky. And that was talk about frustration. 30 years at that time of waiting. And it's just the same thing, but slightly bigger. They're very far away. To the point where you might think, what was even the point? Moses, are you meaning to tell me that there is just some invisible sky being out there who just dotted the night heavens with those things that we'll never get to see? I'll never get to appreciate them up close. I'll never get to see Proxima Centauri. I'll never get to see Vulcan. I'll never get to see those planets that are very far away. So then what's the point of them? Do you hear how supremely arrogant and self-centered that question is? As if God made them for you. God put those stars there because they were pretty to look at. He made them for His good pleasure. He made them because He thought they were pretty. Let me show you something. My Caleb, painted this. I don't even know what grade. It says Caleb Leon Martin to Matthew Leon Martin. He wrote it, but I don't know the year. Do you know the year, baby? He was probably like 8. We're going to go with. Anyway, he didn't draw the thing because it looks very nice, but he painted it though. And in the corner here is a little flower. Now you might say to your child, and don't because it's mean, he's like, what'd you put that flower there for? But if you had said it, you know what your child would say? Because it's pretty. It serves no practical value. It doesn't add anything to the elephant, which is the centerpiece of the picture. This is what the center is, but this is here. And why is it there? Why'd you draw that there? Why is it when every child draws any picture at all that's outside, he always draws a V to make a little bird? What'd you put that bird there for? Because it's pretty. God, what did you put that nebula for? I'll never visit it. I put it there because I wanted to visit it. I put it there because I thought it was pretty. I didn't make it for you, you self-centered person. I made it for me. And when I finished it, when I made it, you know what I said? It's good. That's good. That's good. I'll make another one. He made another one over there. So don't be so conceited as to think the whole universe is there for your good pleasure. We're here for His good pleasure. And so is that nebula over there. Verse 17. The end of verse 16, before we go to verse 17. Well, I know it. And God made the stars also, verse 17, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars. God set them where He put them to give us light for us to see. Verse 18. And, in the case of the sun, to rule over the day, in the case of the moon, to rule over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And when God did all that, God said, it's good. Called it good. Verse 19. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. I think I said this last week, but just in case I didn't. Morning ends in the Genesis record. Morning ends when the sun goes down, not like when it's high noon or something. They just had morning and evening. They had daylight, nightlight, morning, evening. Evening comes first in the Hebrew calendar. And the morning, evening and the morning were the fourth day. So now verse 20. And God said, sixth and seventh utterances of creation. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that has life, and the bird that they may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. Day 5, already God has made all the big stuff. The earth is here, the sky is here, the sun, the moon, the stars are here. Vegetation, life, which, singular little vegetables, not big, but the whole of it is big in terms of quantity. So plants, vegetables, all that's here. Now animals finally get to join the stage. Birds and fish come first. The former fly, the Bible says in my Bible, the open firmament of heaven. If you remember last week we talked about it, you had a world of water. God separated water from water. There's a space in between. That is the sky. And there's where the birds fly. That is not where the planets are, or the stars are. There's other planets too. That is not where the sun is and the moon is, but that's where the birds are going to fly, in that open gap in between the water here and the water up there. So it is God who first stocks the waters with life. Verse 21. And God created great whales, which it says that, I don't know, your Bible might not say whales. In verse 21, does anybody's Bible say something other than whales? Sea monsters, just big aquatic things. And Moses is drawing a distinction between like your little bitty, tiny fish that you might catch or see, and the big ones, the big mama jamas. He's saying God created those too, as humongous as they are. You'll get that in Job. Job his eyes are drawn to, God directs his attention to these big giant things. And God says, yeah, but I fish those the way you fish a bass. So God created the big things too, Moses says, and every living creature that moves, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind. You'll hear that phrase several times now. And every winged fowl, every bird, after his kind. And when God did that, he said it was good. The translation, I guess, would be more accurate to be like, let the waters teem with life. It's just a passive declaration that this now is going to happen next. So it's not like, I think the way my Bible translates it, let the waters bring forth abundantly. It just let these empty waters suddenly have a lot of stuff in it. In this case, it's going to be aquatic life. Birds in the air, animals in the sea. Verse 22. And God blessed them, saying, bless the animals, saying, be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters in the seas and let the fowl multiply in the earth. So God supernaturally made the first one, but then he gave them the capacity and the equipment and the necessary conditions in order to make more of them after their own skills and abilities. So he just has to do it supernaturally the one time, then nature takes over. God invented nature. There is no mother nature. There is a father who made nature. And God blessed them and says, be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters and the seas and let the birds multiply the earth. Verse 23. In the evening and the morning were the fifth day. One day of creation left. We got a lot to get done. Let's see how the Lord does it. Verse 24. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind. The earth in this case being not the planet, but the ground, the dry ground. Let it bring forth every living creature after his kind. Cattle, creeping things, beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. Did your Bible say beast in that verse? Well, you have cattle. That's like the animals you're going to eat. That's your tame game. And then you have beasts. That's the animals you're not typically going to eat. That's your wild game. But, occasions happen. We make exceptions and we'll eat those too. So in other words, you'll see these big exotic creatures. You don't typically think I'm going to hunt those and eat those. Beasts. But then you have the animals that are going to be commonly eaten. Remember, Moses is writing this to a people who have already been around. They already know animals they eat, animals they don't eat. And I don't mean clean and unclean. They know the animals that they hunt regularly. They see the other animals. And Moses is just saying, God made all of this. God made all of this. And you think, well, that's redundant. It's obvious. It's superfluous. Why are you adding all that? Because you got to remember, Israel is unique in that they have this one God who does it all. Whereas all these other nations that surround them, that they're about to go conquer, because it's written, pre Joshua conquest, that all these other Canaanite nations and all these other nations around them, they all have their individual God for this and God for that. And they have the God for the sun, the God for the moon. And Moses says, no, there's just the one. They have a God for the insect and they have a God for the crocodile. Moses says, just the one. They have a God for the cow and they have a God for the wild oxen. No, there's just the one God who made all of this stuff, is Moses' point here. 25. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creeps upon the earth after his kind. In other words, God allows, through the process of procreation and segmentation of various animals, to procreate within themselves and to adapt to their environments and to slightly become and make variations of one another, all within the same I don't know, genus is the right word, but kind is the word Moses uses, so we'll use that too. In other words, God made cow, and then through the process of natural time, cow becomes Angus cow, cow becomes Holstein cow, cow becomes whatever. So God just made the kind. And then when we get to it, this is the setup to chapter 6. It's time to put the animals on the ark. We just need the kinds. Noah, don't worry about it, and it'll happen again. They'll split up as time dictates. Did all those things after their kind. Yeah. So I know how the Bible comes off because I've had those conversations, and I've certainly listened to other people have those conversations online and other circles. How Genesis comes off. It comes off as a fairy tale. It comes off as a fable. It comes off as once upon a time the sky being said, let's have birds, and there were birds. But like, have you seriously stopped to consider the alternative, which is just there was once upon a time there was sludge, and out of the sludge came an amoeba, and out of the amoeba came a more complex amoeba, and eventually along came a worm, and from the worm, eventually there's a rhinoceros. That is a fairy tale because like where did the sludge come from, right? So you choose what you believe. You choose your miracle. Either your miracle is life came from non-life, or your miracle is life came from life. I choose life came from life. That's my miracle. And my miracle man wrote a book to tell me about it. Yours didn't, so I choose mine. I guess my point is simply to say, it's not a cop-out to say God did it if God did in fact actually do it. So Genesis 1 is Moses saying, God did that. And so there it is. 1:26. And God said, let us make man after our image, or in our image, after our likeness. And let them, mankind, have dominion over the fish of the sea and the fowl of the air and over every cattle and over all the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So leading up to this, you have this escalation of creations. You have, I'm going to make this kind of animal and these kinds of animals and those kinds of animals, but then we're going to make a different kind of thing. Not another animal, but another thing that is going to live on this earth alongside the animals. And that's, in that sense, I just mean occupying the same space. But this thing that we're going to make is going to be distinctive and unique. They are going to have dominion. They are going to have supremacy. They're going to have the right and the cognitive capacity to dictate and govern and control and regulate all the other animals. I understand if you go to the African, wilderness and you're just out there on your own, traipsing through the savannah in your flip-flops, a lion is going to eat you. And you don't get to say as the lion is pouncing, I thought I had dominion over you. Because no, that's not how that works. You're going to get eaten. But what doesn't happen is you never find like a pride of lions getting together, huddling up and discussing how best to control the human population. You do that because you have dominion. That's the difference. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. So that's getting ahead of ourselves. We'll see that again after Noah gets off the ark. So that's that. Let's just put a pin in that for, 6 weeks till we get there. Right now, again, verse 26. And God said, let us. Every other time, let there be, let there be, let there be, or some derivative thereof. This time, God does not just speak, God first speaks within himself. God speaks within the fellowship of essences that comprise the Godhood. It's like before your parents make a big decision when you were kids, they would go into the room, they would shut the door, and together they would privately discuss it. And you might cup your ear to it and try to listen in, but you had no say in the discussion. The parenthood was coming to a decision. Then they would open the door and they would let you know what it was. Here, the Godhood is conversing within themselves. The Godhood is going to come together to make something here in a way that is distinctive, to the point where they first huddle up, and I'm using purely earthly kind of illustrations to help us grasp this, but there is no grasping it perfectly, but just let's roll with it. God is huddling up within himself, this fellowship of three in one, this triune nature of himself, with three distinctive minds and three distinctive personalities and even three distinctive wills that all always fit together and are never in disharmony. Harmoniously come together to discuss within themselves what they're going to do, and they say, let us make something special. Let us make what essentially is called the crown jewel of creation. Psalm 8. So we have 10 utterances here. We have 7 so far. God said, or 8 so far. Let there be light, let there be firmament, let the dry land appear, let the earth bring forth grass, let there be lights, let there be fish, let there be birds, and let there be land animals. And in each one of those cases, it was last week we talked about, I'm not going to rewrite it, but you had the Father, Son, the Spirit, the architect, the executor, and the organizer. The aspect of the divine nature that says, let's do this thing. And the Son, the Word, according to John 1, who actually carries out the doing of the thing, and then the Spirit that comes along and then kind of cleans it up, organizes it, straightens it, beautifies it, garnishes it, does all of that. You have those three distinctive roles in which they play to do the thing, whatever the thing may be, in this case, creation. But in this case, before they do the thing, they huddle up and they say, let's do this thing that's going to be different. Let us make man in our image. When he made light, though God is light, God did not say, let's make light in our image. When God made the cow, though Christ is a sacrifice or a goat or a lamb, he did not say, let us make the lamb in our image. When God made the tree, though God is a provider, he did not say, let's make the tree in our image. But when God made man, not when he made a monkey, when God made man, he said, this one is in our image. Okay, dear Moses, I'm writing, what does that mean? It's one of those phrases that I kind of understand, but the moment I try to explain it, I lose my words. I lose the capacity. Like I get it implicitly, but I don't get it explicitly. I get it, I get the vibe of it, but I don't quite know how to explain it. What does that mean? You made us, we are saying to God, humanity, in your image. And the closest way, I have two different ways I have of understanding this. And this is just me. You might have your own entire different interpretation of it. And the beautiful thing about this is, it's probably okay. Just having different interpretations of this, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be fine. This is a sermon I'm going to do, so I'm not going to step on my toes too much and cannibalize that sermon that's coming in April. But you have God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, Father, Son, Spirit. And you've probably seen variations of this. They've been floating around since Nicaea. But you've got the Father and the Son and the Spirit. And, let's do it like this. Not, but is. Now this, I'm sure, is crystal clear. So the Father is God, the Son is God, the Spirit is God, but the Son is not the Spirit is not the Father is not the Son, but they are all God, right? They all occupy their distinctive roles. So this being, the Father is God, the Son is God, the Spirit is God. You are made in the image of God. Who are you? Who are you? Let's just use me since I'm up here. I have a body, a mind, and a soul. All right? So I have a body. My body is me. I have a mind. My mind is me. It's no one else's. You can't even read it. It's purely mine. I have to share my thoughts with you whenever I have them. And then I have a soul. Right? My soul is me. My soul is not my mind. People get that distinction confused. They sometimes blend them. But my soul is not my mind. My mind is my thinking capacity thing. My soul is that spiritual essence that is what gives me life. And when my soul is separated from, I know the King James, or at least I guess it's all translations. I know James, not that James, not King James, but James, inspired James, says when your soul is separated from its body, that's what death is, end of James 2. But that's just like the most basic and rudimentary way of illustrating it. Really, technically, James, as if I can presume that, it's when your soul is separated from its body and its mind, because your mind is part of your body, but your soul is also part of your body, and your soul is also part of your mind. They are all 3 in 1. You are a 3 in 1 being. You have a body, mind, and a soul. And your body is not your soul, but it is you. And if you separate your body from you, you're not you anymore. And your mind is part of you, but you're not, and I say part because, again, these are imperfect illustrations, but your mind is not your body. And your mind is also not your brain. Your brain is part of your body, but your consciousness, your capacity to think and to reason and to make decisions, your will is all built into here. But that spiritual thing that links you to God, because if you take that away, you're just a body and a brain that can't function and a mind that's no longer active. You take this away and then you're dead. This spiritual thing, the spiritual ethereal part of you is not your body or your mind. It's what we call your soul. And they are all you. So I totally disagree with C.S. Lewis on this one particular point. And he is a brilliant apologist and a writer about Christian things in a lot of capacities. But C.S. Lewis had this, in fact, I think this might be misattributed to C.S. Lewis. I'll need to look that up. We'll say it's C.S. Lewis because most people do. There's this phrase that goes around, you do not have a soul, you are a soul, you have a body. That's not true either. You are you. You have a body, you have a mind, and you have a soul. Well, what is me that has that? Without those things, you aren't you. And only with all of those things are you. That's why death is bad. And you have to remember that, because when your loved one dies and you put them in the ground and their soul is separate from their body, they're not them anymore. And Jesus just calls that being asleep, and the New Testament calls that them being asleep. And we get so fixated on how bad this world is and how crummy this world is and how beautiful it will be when Jesus comes back and all the dead rise, we all live together. The reason that's so great is because all the dead are going to rise. And we focus on, well, he died and went to heaven, and my loved one who suffered is now suffering anymore. And that's true, they're not suffering anymore. If they're a Christian, they're now at peace, they're not at rest, they're in paradise, it's bliss, it's wonderful, it's good. But they're never supposed to have suffered in the first place. That's Eden. We'll get there in a little bit. Well, not this week, but they never should have had the suffering for you to want them to die. All of that came after. That's all what the curse of sin does. And so when they die, I don't want you ever to forget that death is the enemy. Death is bad. Death was not given to us in the garden. Life was. That's why when Jesus says to Mary and Martha, I am the resurrection and the life, it means something. Mary and Martha were not sitting there thinking, well, at least Lazarus is no longer suffering because he was sick and now he's dead. He's no longer sick, so we can rejoice. He's no longer suffering. No, it's bad. Your brother Lazarus should never have been suffering in the first place, but sin came and then suffering comes with that, and so now he dies in suffering. But I am coming to take away suffering and to take away death and to give them life without suffering forevermore. I'm coming to bring Eden back. And in fact, he's already done it. Each Christian is his own little personal pan Eden. You are yourself Eden. You are walking with God. You have this relationship with God. And that's why Jesus, when he says that in John 11, he says, if you believe in me, eventually there'll be no more death. He doesn't say that. He says, if you believe in me, you will never die. So yes, you put a gun in my head and pull the trigger. Yes, my soul will leave its body. But Christ says that will be temporary. And you should mourn, but not for long. Now I'm getting ahead of myself and away from my point. My point was, you are a triune being. So if you're looking for an explanation, a possible one, God made us in his image. God is a fellowship of three in one, and so are you. That's not a perfect illustration because your soul is not independent in its thinking capacity from its mind and your body. God's Spirit has a mind. The Father has a mind. The Son has a mind, and they converse with one another. You don't do that, so it's not a perfect illustration. Let's look at the next verse, then I'll give you my other explanation possible of what that means. Look at verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female, he created them. So obviously this is what's called prolepsis. It's a forward-looking kind of statement, or it's Moses writing after the fact before it happens. It's one of these. So it's like, you ever use the expression, Zach's not in here, Zach's in there. You met Zach in high school. You met your husband in high school, right, Morgan? Middle school? Dadgum. You met your husband in middle school, right, Morgan? But he wasn't your husband when you met him, right? That's prolepsis, okay? It's using a modern term in forward looking of the thing before it happened. So I met my wife in elementary school or whatever. Well, she wasn't your wife when you met her, but I know what you mean. Moses, before, has not properly introduced Eve yet, but he uses prolepsis to say male and female. He does that because he's writing to a bunch of people who have women, who have wives. They know what they are. He's not breaking any news. So that's out of the way. Let's get back to the beginning of the verse. God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. So what does that mean? I've given you this one. 3 in 1. We're 3 in 1. God's 3 in 1. Okay, but here's another idea. The things of nature, all those other things that God made, none of which he made in his image. A tree, a sunset, a thunderstorm, a faraway constellation. Those things can only illustrate the creative power of God. We can see the beauty of God's handiwork in the purple and red sunset every evening, but that's it. In other words, a sunset or a storm can show me how beautiful a painter God is or how epic in scale his creation is, but that's it. If I ask the sunset to describe the power of God, it cannot do that. It can just show me what it is, and that's it. A tree cannot be compassionate. An ocean cannot sacrifice. A star cannot forgive. There are things that nature cannot do, things which God can do that I would never know about if I only considered the wonder of his physical universe. But I, on the other hand, can be compassionate. I can sacrifice. I can forgive. I can love. I can demonstrate all those wonderful personality traits of the Father, being in his image, made to do that which he does. I don't do it like he does. I don't do it perfectly. I don't live up to that standard, but I have the capacity to. A duck does not. A duck's not made in his image, but I am. So whether or not I live up to that standard, that's on me. But God gave me the ability to do so. Sin is going to interrupt that. Christ is going to restore that and give me the power once again to live up to that standard. Genesis 1:28. So God made mankind, and he blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Essentially, here in Genesis 1:28, Moses has introduced God making woman too. It's just he hasn't given you the details yet. You'll get the details of God making woman in chapter 2, as you will get a lot of additional details in chapter 2, and that is not Moses telling you a second creation account. It is just simply Moses restating things for the purposes of elaboration. Again, verse 28. God blessed them being man and woman. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living thing that lives, that moves upon the earth. God blessed them. But you know what? God blessed the birds. God blessed the fish. God blessed every aspect of his creation. When God said it was good, that itself is a blessing. God is giving them his approval. He's giving himself a stamp of approval. Here, he's doing the same thing for humanity. This is the 10th and final utterance of creation. He did not give the moose dominion over the frog. He did not give the robin dominion over the shark. Only man is given dominion over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Don't get pedantic. The fish too. But that's the point. Verse 29. So I guess you could put it this way. God has absolute, by his nature, dominion over everything. He has given us delegated dominion. God has created this beautiful world, and he's handed it to mankind and said, now I want you to take this planet and do something with it. I want you to tend to the garden. I want you to name the animals. I want you to have this beautiful world here. And then we took it and said, thank you. Here you go, Satan. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. That's the story of the Bible in a nutshell. 29. And God said, behold, I have given you, again, he's talking to humanity, I have given you every herb-bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which there is fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. Meat in this Old King James just means stuff you eat for nutrients. Herb, fruit, cows, chickens, all that stuff is good. So I have given these things to you. So the next time your child says, I don't think it's right to eat meat, you can respect their opinion. They don't have to eat it. But they don't get to say it's immoral. Because God said, I made that thing for you to eat. If you choose not to enjoy this delicious steak that I have cooked for you because you think it is obscene to eat the cow, that's fine. But keep that to yourself, and I will keep the steak to myself, and we'll both be happy. Okay? You do not get to say it's immoral because Jesus ate lamb every Passover. Anywho, verse 30. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. Now, having said that, all the stuff I just said there, I'll go out on a half of a limb and say probably pre-exile from Eden, man was vegetarian. And probably all the animals were too. That there was a sense of, in the most literal way, peace on earth, where the lion was not hunting the lamb and man was not killing a deer because man didn't need to kill a deer to eat when man could just pluck fruit from the tree of life and live. And how often he had to pluck that, how often he had to eat. There's definitely an implication, especially when you link this to Revelation, there's definitely an implication that man routinely went back to the tree of life to eat. That it wasn't just you eat this thing one time. Like there are two trees here, life and knowledge of good and evil, and you have this one opportunity to make this choice. That's not the way Genesis paints the picture. That's not the way the Bible paints the picture of it. It's just you have this tree here that you're not supposed to eat, and here's this tree from which you eat to have life. But there are all kinds of trees. It's a garden. And that word garden doesn't just mean like, a small rectangular area with flowers. The word in the classical sense is just a place of beautiful natural life growing there, trees and plants and vegetation and things like that. It's all there for the taking. The implication seems to be it's not until after the fall, when the world is broken and cursed, that meat starts getting eaten. But again, prolepsis, Moses, the writer, and God knowing the future, is setting that up, and he's planning that idea that this is how it will be one day. Just because God knows a thing doesn't mean God calls a thing, John Calvin. That's not what that works. That's not how that works. All right. Verse 30. Every beast, every fowl, everything that creeps, where there's life, it's all yours. You can eat what you want of it. 31. Yeah, I know, the puffer fish, if you eat it, you'll die. Don't get pedantic. It's just, if it's food, you can eat it. If it's not, he gave you a mind. Just use it. 31. And God saw everything that he made, and behold, it was very good. Why? Well, because he's done, and he's assessing the whole thing. It's not because he made man, and he said man in particular is very good. Although we were. God made us special and unique and distinctive from all the other creations, but I'm done now. The whole of it is very good. And behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. That's how chapter 1 ends. I got 40 seconds. So we'll just stop there. Any comments or questions from anybody related to Genesis 1?
If you look at it, you see God did this in an order.
Mm-hmm.
Had order. But then there at the end, he says, okay, this is the order that I intend. There's God, there's man. I put you over everything that was created. It's for you. And then if you pervert that order, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the world goes into chaos. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes, David.
What day do you suspect the laws of nature went into place?
Well, why don't you define laws of nature?
That is, I guess, with the math thing, the sun, the time, when time started, when gravity was in.
Okay, so like that, yeah. Well, I think time, God made light. Light is a measurement of time. So I think that's day one. Gravity, when God made the world, it's what we know from the moon and tide that the waters are gravity. The moon, I'm like a broken English student. The moon spinning around the earth pulls the water. So water is controlled by gravity. So therefore, I would say, my point is, in the beginning when God made the world and it was just a bunch of water, gravity is holding it in place, right? So I think gravity is on day 1 too. So I would probably say all that thermodynamics, all those Newtonian laws and stuff, that's day 1. Or even, it depends on how you interpret this, because you don't have the first utterance of creation until God says, let there be light, but he already has the thing on which light is shining, because God made in the beginning the heavens and the earth. So is that day 1 too? I would say so, but it might be some like non-temporal time frame. Any other questions? Yeah.
Makes me think of the song, Hallelujah, Praise Jehovah. I always wondered on that second verse, creeping things and beasts and cattle, it's literally...
Yep. Bingo, bango. Okay, that's it. The children are coming. Prepare yourselves. Here they come.